More than 2,000 years ago, one of the most important thinkers of ancient times gave this advice: let the ruler be a ruler and the subject a subject. A youth, when at home, should act with respect to his parents, and, abroad, be respectful to his elders. He should be earnest and truthful. He should overflow in love to all and cultivate the friendship of the good. When you have faults, do not fear to abandon them. These words are from the teachings of Confucius, who lived in China about 500 BC. He taught that all individuals have duties and responsibilities. If a person acts correctly, the result will be peace and harmony. Confucius' ideas helped to guide Chinese life for hundreds of years. Students, take a few moments and answer the questions about Confucius on the top of page 11 in your worksheet. Civilizations of East Asia. Regions of Asia and Africa produced civilizations earlier than China's. A civilization has cities, a central government, workers who do specialized jobs, and social classes. One of the world's early civilizations, however, only China's has survived. This makes it the oldest continuous civilization in the world. Korea and Japan are not as old, but they, too, have long histories. Students, take a few moments to answer the question under Civilizations of East Asia in your worksheet. China's Middle Kingdom. For much of its history, China had little to do with the rest of the world. The Great Wall of China first started in 600s BC as many small unconnected walls between warring states. Over time, it became a symbol of China's desire to keep the world at a distance. In fact, Chinese leaders had such pride that they named their country the Middle Kingdom. To them, it was the center of the universe. Students, pause and answer the questions under China's Middle Kingdom. Ancient achievements. The Chinese had reason to believe that their civilization was the greatest in the world. They invented paper, gunpowder, silk weaving, the magnetic compass, the printing press, and clockworks. Chinese engineers were experts at digging canals, building dams and bridges, and setting up irrigation systems. Chinese scientists made major discoveries in mathematics and medicine. Students, pause now and answer the questions under Ancient Achievements. Dynasties in China. Starting in ancient times, China was governed by an emperor, a male ruler of an empire. An empire is an area of many territories and people that are controlled by one government. A series of emperors from the same family is a dynasty. Chinese history is described in terms of dynasties. The chart below lists major dynasties of China. Students, answer the questions under Dynasties in China. Look at the chart on the bottom of page 79. Korea and China. Although Korea's original settlers came from North Central Asia, Korea's history is closely tied to China. Around 1200 BC, during a time of troubles in China, some Chinese moved to the Korean peninsula. Later, other Chinese settled in the southern part of the peninsula. In this way, Chinese people brought Chinese knowledge and customs to the Koreans. As in China, dynasties ruled Korea. While China had many dynasties, Korea only had 3. The first was the Shilla. The Shilla dynasty unified Korea as one country in AD 668. Students, pause now and answer the questions under Korea and China. Years of isolation in Japan. For much of Japan's history, clans, or groups of families who claim a common ancestor, fought each other for land and power. Around AD 500, one clan, the Yamato, became powerful. Claiming descent from the sun goddess, Yamato leaders took the title of emperor. Many emperors sat on Japan's throne. For a long time, they had little power. Instead, shoguns, or emperor's generals, made the laws. Warriors, nobles, and samurai enforced these laws. Together, the shoguns and samurai ruled Japan for more than 700 years. Japan was isolated from the outside world from about 640 to 1853. Japanese leaders believed that isolation or separation was the best way to keep the country united. Japan finally was forced to trade with the West in the 1800s. Students, pause now and answer the questions in your packet under Years of Isolation in Japan. Also look at the picture at the bottom of page 80 showing the events in Japanese history. Students, I'm now reading from the top of page 82 under the little box to the left that says the world, West meets East. The West has been greatly influenced by East Asia. In ancient Rome, wealthy people prized clothing made from Chinese silk. Silk productions came to Europe from China. Eastern art influenced the design of Western architecture and furniture. Traders imported porcelain, pottery made from a fine white clay from East Asia. Europeans and Americans called it China. All these examples show cultural diffusion, or the spreading of ideas and practices from one culture to others. Pause now and go ahead and answer the questions under West meets East. The spread of cultures in East Asia, the top of page 82. In ancient times, China was far ahead of the rest of the world in inventions and discoveries. Thus, it is not surprising that many Chinese discoveries spread to Korea and Japan. This process of cultural diffusion, or spreading of ideas from one culture to other cultures, happened early. The teachings of Confucius were among the first ideas to be passed along. The religion of Buddhism, which China has adopted from India, later spread to Korea and Japan. East Asian culture owes much to the early exchanges among China, Japan, and Korea. In each case, the countries changed what they borrowed until the element of culture became their own. Students, go ahead and pause and answer the questions under the spread of cultures in East Asia. Westerners in East Asia. In the 1800s, Europeans and Americans began to produce great amounts of manufactured goods. East Asia seemed to be a good place to sell these products. Western trading ships began to sail to Asian ports. Go ahead and answer the question under Westerners in the East Asia. The opening of East Asia. In 1853, U.S. Commodore Matthew Perry sailed with 4 warships to Japan. He forced Japan to grant trading rights to the United States. The opening up of China to Europe was different. The British, French, Germans, Portuguese, Russians, and Japanese gained control over parts of China. Other countries then feared losing the opportunity to share in China's riches. In 1899, the United States announced the policy that China should be open for trade with all nations equally. For a while, nations halted their efforts to divide up China. Students, answer the questions under the section called The Opening of East Asia. New forces in the 1900s. Many Chinese blamed the emperor for the foreign powers in their country. In 1911, revolution broke out in China. The rule of emperors ended and a republic was set up. Meanwhile, Japan was becoming more powerful. Its leaders sought to control other Asian countries. One of their reasons was to make sure that Japan would have resources to fuel its growing industries. Japanese attacks on other Asian and Pacific lands led to the start of World War II in East Asia in 1941. In 1945, the United States and its allies defeated Japan. After World War II ended, civil war broke out in China between two groups, the nationalists and the communists. The communists won the war in 1949 and made China a communist nation, one in which the government owns large industries, businesses, and most of the country's land. After World War II, Korea was divided into two parts. Communists ruled North Korea. South Korea turned to Western nations for support. And in 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea. The United States sent 480,000 troops to help South Korea. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, killing about 37,000 U.S. soldiers and more than 2 million Koreans. Neither side won. The battle line at the end of the war in 1953 remains the border between the two Koreans today. Students, go ahead and pause and answer the rest of the questions on page 13 on your worksheet. When planning their economies, all countries ask these three basic questions. What will be produced? How will it be produced? For whom will it be produced? For the countries of East Asia, the answers to these questions depend largely on factors surrounding these two things, natural resources and land use. Natural resources are materials found in nature. They include fertile land, minerals, water, and forests. Natural resources can be used to produce all sorts of goods, from cars to sweatshirts. Land use is linked to natural resources. To improve their economies, governments have to decide how to use the land and the natural resources they contain. East Asia's natural resources. East Asia's lands and waters are filled with abundant natural resources. As the map on the next page shows, East Asia has natural resources that can be used to produce energy, such as coal, oil, and water for hydroelectric power. Other resources in East Asia are the raw materials for manufactured goods, such as electronic equipment. The water bodies and fertile land of East Asia are also important resources. Student, please take a few minutes to study the map at the top of page 21. Mineral resources in the two Koreas. East Asia has plenty of mineral resources, but they are unevenly distributed. Some countries have more and other countries have less. The two Koreas, for example, have limited mineral resources. Coal and iron, which are used in manufacturing, are plentiful in North Korea. But there is little coal or iron in South Korea, where much more manufacturing takes place. The only minerals that are in large supply in the South are tungsten and graphite. If South Korea could share North Korea's coal and iron, both countries would benefit. But the two do not share resources since they are hostile toward each other. North Korea is a developing country, one that has low industrial production and little modern technology. South Korea is a developed country, one with many industries and a well-developed economy. Because of its limited resources, South Korea must import the iron, crude oil, and chemicals it needs for its industries. Nevertheless, it has become one of East Asia's richest economies. It exports or sells many manufactured goods to other nations. Mineral resources in Japan. Japan is a modern industrial society, yet Japan, like South Korea, has few mineral resources. It imports vast quantities of minerals. Japan is the world's largest importer of coal, natural gas, and oil. It also imports about 95% of the iron ore, tin, and copper that it needs to run its major industries. Mineral resources in China. Unlike its East Asian neighbors, China has a large supply of mineral resources. For more than 2,000 years, the Chinese have mined copper, tin, and iron. China has one of the world's largest supplies of coal, which is the most important of its mineral resources. Most of China's coal deposits are found in the northern part of the country. China also has oil deposits. China uses most of the oil it produces, but does export some crude oil and oil products. Students, please answer all of the questions in your packet on page 9. Water for energy production. The rugged mountains and heavy rainfall of East Asia are perfect for developing water power. Using the power of East Asia's swiftly flowing rivers is important to the region's industrial development. However, building dams to collect water is costly. It is even more costly to build power plants that produce hydroelectricity. Hydroelectricity is electricity produced by using the power of flowing water. In 2002, China produced about 17% of its electricity from hydroelectric power. The Chinese government expects this figure to increase when China finishes building the Three Gorges Dam across the Chang River. The Three Gorges Dam will be 1.5 miles wide and more than 600 feet high. China is building the dam not only to produce electricity, but also to control the frequent floods of the Chang River. Students, take a few moments to answer the questions under water for energy production and also to look at the pictures and read the captions. Water for aquaculture. East Asia's ocean and inland waters have been an important source of food for the region's people. Aquaculture, or fish farming, has been practiced in Asia for centuries. During the 1980s and 1990s, however, aquaculture production in Asia greatly expanded. This was due in part to the fact that overfishing and population had decreased the supply of saltwater and freshwater fish. The increase was also due to advances in the practice of aquaculture. In East Asia, China is the leading aquaculture producer. Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan are also among the top aquaculture producers in the world. Aquaculture includes farm-raised fish, shrimp, oysters, mussels, clams, and seaweed. Students, take a few moments now to answer the questions under water for aquaculture. Using the land to produce food. In order to feed its large population, East Asians need to farm every bit of available land. With so many mountains and plateaus, only a small percentage of the land can be cultivated. Only about 14% of China, 12% of Japan, and 14% of North Korea can be farmed. South Korea's 19% is about equal to the percentage of land farmed in the United States. Terrace farming. In China, Japan, and parts of Korea, farmers cut horizontal steps called terraces into steep hillsides to gain a few precious yards of soil for crops. Farmers even use the land at the sides of roads and railway lines for planting. Double cropping. Where climate and soil allow, farmers practice double cropping, growing 2 or more crops on the same land in the same season or at the same time. In China, farmers often plant one type of crop between the rows of another crop in order to grow more food. In some parts of southern China, farmers are even able to grow 3 crops in a year. In southern Japan, rice seeds are sowed in small fields. When the seedlings are about a foot high, they are replanted in a larger field after wheat has been harvested from it. Students, go ahead and answer the questions under using the land to produce food.